Welcome to my second video in a series of 7 about the full rule set of Stationfall, a game by Mateklun published by Iron Games. After watching my first video, you know how to activate a character and make him do things, walking, picking up items, attacking other characters and so on. But we have sidestepped a problem that now needs to be addressed. In the falling station, there are always more characters than players. In a 5-player game, for example, there are 14 characters. And as we know, every turn a player can activate one and only one character. But what character? Can he choose the one he wants? In the world of Stationfall, all these characters already know each other before the beginning of the story. They all live for months in the same space station. And they have already forged many relationships. In the game, this is simulated by a reserve of 8 influence cubes owned by each player. At the beginning of the game, each player keeps his 8 cubes in his reserve, and slowly, turn after turn, he will play these cubes on characters' cards to show who is on his side, who belongs to his network. The game calls it his or her conspiracy. Every turn, just before activating a character, a player can play as many influence cubes as he wants by putting them on a character's card. But only one character's card. So each turn, a player first puts influence cubes on a character, and second, he activates a character to do actions. And he can only activate one of his conspirators, that is, a character on whom he has influence cubes. He puts his A token, A as activation, on the character he activates. On the first turn it's easy. Here, red player puts an influence cube on the microbiologist. So, on the same turn just after that, he has no other choice but to activate the microbiologist because, to this point, this is the only character who belongs to his conspiracy. Note that red player's secret identity can be the botanist. You can put your influence cubes on whoever character you want. You're under no obligation to have an influence cube on your main character. Now it's blue player's turn. He chooses to influence the botanist. He puts an influence cube on the botanist and decides to activate him. If you think about it, this is quite strange, but this situation happens very often in a game of Stationfall. Blue player doesn't know that the botanist is red player's secret identity. For blue player, the botanist is a character like any other. So, he can influence him, then activate him and move him or attack with him or whatever. Next turn, red player can decide to influence that same character, the botanist. Cubes from several players can be on the same character card. Here, the botanist belongs to both red and blue conspiracies. Because a character is one of your conspirators, in other words, you can activate him and do actions with him, only if nobody has more influence cubes on him than you. So, if two players have the same number of influence cubes on a character card, both players can activate him. Red player can activate the botanist. And on their next turns, red and blue players will still be able to activate the botanist without having to add any new influence cubes. Once you have influence cubes on a character, you can keep on activating him as long as you want. Note that red player could put the 2 influence cubes on the botanist. In such a case, the botanist no longer belongs to blue player's conspiracy and only red player can activate him. That's why you can put several cubes at once on one character card. This creates some kind of auction between players, an influence auction on each character card. Okay, that seems easy. The more you want a character in your conspiracy, the more cubes you put on his card. But never forget that in order to influence a character, all the cubes you put on his card must come from your cube reserve. the cubes you keep in front of you that have not yet been used. You cannot take a cube from one character card and put it on another. And so, your conspiracy is quite static. Once defined, it barely changes. Still, it is possible to get some cubes back to your reserve. After the influence phase, instead of activating a character, you can renegotiate. That means that instead of doing actions with a character, you just take back one cube from any character to your reserve. And because you do that instead of activating, you take also your activation token back. Note that renegotiation takes place after the influence phase, so you cannot immediately put the cubes you've obtained back onto another character. So in the end, never forget that renegotiating costs you one full turn in a game where every single turn is precious, so you'd better distribute your influence cubes wisely, building a strong character network, a conspiracy you don't need to change afterwards. Okay, fine, but why would I bother setting up a complicated network of characters when I could just put lots of cubes on one and always activate that one? There are a lot of reasons to use several characters instead of one. They are spread throughout the station and it's often smarter to use a character close to where you want to do actions. They also have each their own capabilities, but one of the main reasons for switching from one character to another is exhaustion. When you begin your turn, every character that has already an activation token on him is exhausted. Here it is the beginning of Red's turn and two characters are exhausted, the microbiologist and the station chief. That means that both these characters have already been activated during the previous turn. So when it is his activation phase, Red player can put his activation token on any character from his conspiracy, but if he activates an already exhausted character, he only gets one action for this turn. One action instead of two. One action plus one free pickup or drop. Note that this exhaustion mechanism deters you from activating a character that another player has already activated, like the microbiologist in the example. But it also deters you from activating the same character twice in a row. In the example, the station chief is exhausted because she had a red activation token at the beginning of Red's turn. So even if Red wants to activate her again this turn, his own activation token from previous turn triggers the exhaustion status and brings a limit of one action only this turn. What matters is the character status at the beginning of the player's turn. And this exhaustion mechanism adds a new available action for your character, the wait action. As its name suggests, when your character does this action, it does nothing. And doing nothing, you can take your activation token back. So, what's the point? Look, this action was specially designed for such a situation. This is a Red player's turn, he activates the consort. The consort moves from the rec room to the suite and picks up the gun. This costs one action because the pickup is free. And a Red player doesn't need any other action this turn with the consort, and it's a shame because the consort with their activation token will be exhausted next turn. So, Red player can declare that the consort waits as their second action, and this removes the activation token. Next turn, they will be able to perform two actions. And if you think about it, in the standard case, your character does two actions and only one the next turn because of exhaustion. With the wait action, he does one action and two the next turn, for a total of 3 actions over 2 turns in both cases. Fine, but now there's still a problem. Let's consider this situation. I am a Red player and my secret identity is the botanist. But even if I put my last influence cube on the botanist, I cannot activate him because blue player has more influence than me on his card. What a shame! Isn't that stupid? I am the botanist. Why shouldn't I be able to do what I want with my own character? In fact, that's because I didn't reveal my secret identity yet. If I want to activate my own character in spite of any influence cube on him, I can, but first I must reveal that I am indeed this character. And there is a special phase to do that, the very first phase of each turn. At the beginning of my turn as red player, I can flip my identity card and reveal to all other players that I am the botanist. And I put my big eye token, my reveal token, every player has his own, on my character's card. As soon as a player reveals his identity, he takes back all the cubes he had on this character. Here, as the red player, I take my red cube back to my reserve. And all other players lose their cubes to the betrayal box, a box on the edge of the game board. Because here is what just happened. The botanist just revealed that he runs for his own agenda and that he doesn't belong to any conspiracy but his own, the red one. So, blue player, who believed from the beginning that the botanist belonged to his own conspiracy, feels now betrayed. And this is serious because players cannot get their cubes back from the betrayal box with a simple renegotiate action. Renegotiation works only on cubes on character cards. Cubes in the betrayal box are very hard to get back, and blue player must now go on with 3 cubes less, 3 out of 8. This is a serious betrayal. Okay, and now that red player revealed he is the botanist, first, no one can influence this character anymore. There can be no more influence cubes on the botanist character card. And from this point on, red player can always activate the botanist. He doesn't need any more cubes on this card. His reveal token is enough to activate the character. Your own character, once revealed, is one of your conspirators. Even better, he is the leader of your conspiracy. And finally, once revealed, a character unlocks some special abilities. Easy to recognize with the eye symbol. We will see them in detail in my videos dedicated to the character gallery, video 4, 5 and 6. Fine, we've almost got it all. Now let's recall this small table. For 5 players, 14 characters. Okay, but look at the last column. At the beginning of the game, during setup, each player draws 2 character cards. Okay, that gives a little choice. Let's say that at the beginning I draw the botanist and the colonel. Fine, I prefer the botanist and I choose him as my own character. And so first, thanks to the colonel card, I got an information. Because now I know that no other player got the colonel card. He cannot be a player's character. But also, I keep the colonel's identity card to show that he is my bonus character. What is this? My main character, the botanist, gives my main victory conditions. The botanist mainly must feed his carnivorous pet plant with dead human bodies and save himself and his plant to planet Earth. More details on that when we'll study all the characters one by one. But also, I turn my bonus identity card upside down and these 2-star symbols with a little planet Earth inside mean that I'll earn 2 more victory points if I save also the colonel to planet Earth. In other words, the colonel is a close friend or a precious ally of the botanist who, in addition to his own goals, will try to save him too. If I had drawn the security robot instead, the victory stars are crossed out with a red cross, and there are 3 of them. This means that the security robot is not the botanist's best friend, but his worst enemy. And the botanist earns 3 bonus victory points if the security robot is down at the end of the game. That is when the station finally falls to the earth. Beware, you cannot say that the robot is destroyed anyway because he is still inside the station when it falls. No, to actually earn the victory points, the security robot must be down. It's a matter of grudge. You don't just want to know that it is destroyed, you want to kill it yourself or with the help of your conspiracy. As we will see later, any downed character that escapes to the Earth is considered live, healed or repaired at the end of the game. So, you don't earn Red Cross bonus victory point if the security robot is down but escapes to the Earth. It must stay down on board. Okay, so you draw 2 identity cards at setup. You keep one as your main character and the other is your bonus character, either your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on its symbols. And when I play this game, I put the bonus card a little below the game board to be sure to not confuse it with my main character. And when I reveal my character, I just reveal my main character. Players never reveal their bonus character before the end of the game. But at the moment you reveal your main character, you can choose to swap both your identity cards. This is called the Shrödinger reveal. So if you think that your first choice was not the best, you can still choose to reveal your bonus character instead and play him as your main character. Everything then unfolds as if you chose this character from the beginning, but your previous main character is discarded. That means you don't have bonus character anymore and you won't earn any bonus victory point in the end. That's the cost to pay to change your mind in the middle of the game. That's the cost of Schrödinger. Now you see the big picture. Each player starts with 8 influence cubes. And once per turn during the influence phase, he can put 1 or more cubes on one character, adding him to his network, his conspiracy. Because a player can only activate and do actions with characters from his conspiracy. So, this influence step is very important. With only 8 cubes, you must build the network that will help your main character to reach his goals, the network that will make you win the game. And if you are not fully happy with your conspiracy, you can get cubes back to your reserve by renegotiating instead of activating a character. And when you reveal your main character, you also take back all the cubes on his card. Other players' cubes are lost to the betrayal, and these cubes cannot be retrieved by a renegotiation. We will see in video number 3 that still there is a way to take them back from betrayal. There is always a way. Finally, you have to know that every character has his own influence capacity. This is this number on a grey cube symbol. With a capacity of 6, the consort has much more influence than the medical robot. Here is how it works. At the end of the game, every player considers his main character's influence capacity, and he loses 1 victory point for each influence cube he used above that limit. So, if the consort did use 7 cubes to influence characters and build their conspiracy, this player loses 1 victory point because he used 1 more cube than the 6 allowed. If a player with the medical robot as his main character spent the same 7 cubes on his conspiracy, he loses 3 victory points at the end of the game because 7 is 3 more than its 4 cubes capacity. When the end of the game approaches, it can be a good idea to make a renegotiation instead of activating characters just to get some cubes back and avoid this victory point loss. In Stationfall, every victory point counts. A single point can cost you victory. Okay, with this beautiful diagram, you could think that there's nothing more to say about influence. But no, because this diagram is for, let's say, fair influence, the courteous way to interact with each other. But of course, above that, there are some more funny ways, threat and bribery. Threats work with Kompromats. A kompromat is some kind of dirty information you can know about a character in the game. A piece of information compromising enough to force him to act on your behalf. And because no one is ever completely righteous, every character in the game has his own kompromat, one unique kompromat token for each character. So, 14 kompromat tokens in a 5-player game. At the beginning of the game, all kompromats are shuffled face down and randomly set up in the station in the sections that show a kompromat symbol. And during the game, any character can pick up a kompromat as if it was an item. The colonel in the security station moves to the rec room and picks up the kompromat with his free pickup action. But beware, a kompromat is not an item. It is a piece of knowledge, a piece of information. And as such, once picked up, the kompromat does belong to the player and not to the character. It never goes to a character's inventory, but instead in front of the player who activated this character. The colonel found the kompromat, red player gets it and can secretly look at it. It's the botanist's kompromat. If later another character activates the colonel, it gives him no right to own or to look at the kompromat he found. Once picked up, the kompromat doesn't belong to the colonel anymore. It belongs to red player. And so a kompromat cannot be given, nor dropped, nor thrown, nor robbed. Once in the hand of a player, it never goes back to the game board. Okay, and now what to do with a kompromat? At any time during his activation phase, a player can play a kompromat he owns and immediately perform one action with the character who matches the kompromat symbol. And this can be very powerful. Look, in our example, this is red player turn, activation phase. Red player flips the kompromat he owns and reveals it. It's the botanist's kompromat. And so, he uses it to perform one action with the botanist, even if he has no influence at all on the botanist character. Kompromat is a matter of threat, not influence. Red player chooses the throw action. Under the threat of red player, the botanist throws his helmet to the rec room. And then, as his regular activation phase, red player activates the colonel, who picks up the helmet with his free pickup action and moves twice. So, before your eyes, the botanist just threw his so precious helmet to prevent the spread of some embarrassing information I let you imagine. Each kompromat can be used only once, after that it is discarded and never returns to the game. It is put on its character card to show that this character cannot be threatened by a kompromat anymore. A kompromat can be used at any time during the activation phase, even between actions. For example, red player activates the colonel, who for one action moves to the forward hub and drags the down chimpanzee with him. You can always drag a down character with you for a one-section move. Then, right in the middle of his activation phase, he reveals his kompromat and kindly asks the botanist to heal the chimpanzee with his last nanogel dose. This is a revive action. And then, with his second action, the colonel gives his gun to the chimpanzee. Let's suppose red player's secret identity is the Astro Chimp. This is a great move for him. By using his influence upon the colonel and his kompromat against the botanist, he got the gun, which is one of the chimpanzee's victory conditions. Note that a kompromat action doesn't give any right to pick up or drop a free action. The botanist in our example, under the kompromat threat, can do one action and only one action. Okay. A player can own as many kompromats as he can find. There is no limit. But he can play only one per activation phase, so one per turn. And the question you're probably asking, Is it possible to play a compromat that matches a revealed player character? If blue player has revealed his identity, he is the botanist. And if, as red player, I own the botanist compromat, can I play it to force the botanist, so blue player himself, to do an action for me? And the answer is yes. But it requires some more rules that will be learned in the next video, so more on that later. And can I play a compromat on myself? If my secret identity is the botanist and I found the botanist compromat, can I play it on myself to get a bonus action? The official rules say yes, you can. But if you ask me the question as Jean-Michel Grosjeu, I don't like this at all. In my opinion, it makes no sense to play a compromat on myself. I am the botanist. I know some compromising information about myself. Of course I know what I did. And even if I find some physical evidence of my wrongdoing somewhere in the station, the compromat, in no way would I threaten myself to do one more action. So, and this is a Jean-Michel Grosjeu house rule, I prefer to forbid the play of a compromat by a player on his own character, the one who matches his secret identity card, even if this character has not yet been revealed. However, it is still possible against your bonus character. And finally, let's talk about bribery, the other nasty way to influence people. At the beginning of the game, each player has his own bribe token. It looks like a Bitcoin, let's call it a Bitcoin, and imagine this is your conspiracy's funding. Each player has a Bitcoin, not each character. Money is linked to players, to conspiracies. And the rest is very easy. A Bitcoin token is just like a Joker compromat. You can use it just like a compromat, but on any character. So, at any time during your activation phase, you play your Bitcoin, you name any character, and you can do one action immediately with this character. And because you have only one Bitcoin, you can do this only once during the whole game. So use it wisely. This Bitcoin action should be the one action that makes you escape the station or kill your worst enemy. When a player uses his Bitcoin to bribe a character, he puts his Bitcoin token on this character. Because of course, after being bribed, this character is now rich. Beware, he cannot use this new money to bribe another character. Only players can bribe with their own Bitcoin, the one in their color, never characters. But still, this character is rich, and that means that if it happens that he is another player's main character, this Bitcoin token will give him 1 victory point at the end of the game. In other words, every Bitcoin token is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. So, if you keep your own Bitcoin until the end, you earn 1 victory point. If your Bitcoin ends the game on a common character, you don't earn this victory point and nobody earns it. But if your Bitcoin ends on a player's character, this player earns the victory point. So, use your Bitcoin wisely, try to avoid giving it to a character who will later turn out to be another player's main character. Still, you can use your Bitcoin to bribe an already revealed player's character, and this also will be explained in my next video. And you cannot bribe yourself. On this point, I agree with the official rule, no need for house rules. And finally, note also that you can use one compromat and your Bitcoin during the same activation phase. They can target the same character or two separate characters. And here we are, this is the end of my second video. In the next one, the third, I'll take you on a guided tour of the station and we will learn together how to use every single piece of equipment. We will talk about firebombs, antimatter, outer space and much more. We will also talk about guilt because yes, in this game you may have to pay for your crimes. You may escape the station but to end up in jail. So, let's take a little nap and meet again in my next video.